Hello everybody. I know did a video not too long ago tonight, but since then enough things have happened on the feeds that have made me want to talk about the nominees this week and what they have done tonight. Some being even bigger headaches than usual. Others, maybe doing something smart in my opinion. Zach started tonight crying to Mickey about how the game is just hard right now, and I think this was maybe his way of trying to solidify getting Mickey's vote to stay. I do believe that Mickey is has not made up her mind where her vote is going to go this week. The problem with Zach using tears for Mickey is that Vince has gotten way ahead of him on the emotional manipulation, crying last week, and now he's on the block against Vince. I don't know. Zach's gonna have to play catch up when it comes to the tears game of trying to get votes this week. But what Zach did tonight with Morgan is what interests me the most, and it kind of goes back to the video I did earlier tonight with Morgan and Zach. Their game relationship is very, very tight, and Zach has kept his power secret this whole time. He didn't use his power today, and tonight he finally told Morgan about his power and said, and I quote, "I had the chance to take myself off. I wasn't willing to risk you going up. If I had given my 10,000 up, I could take myself off the block. I would rather have myself still up there than you." Morgan told him, "You should have done it, Zach." I like Zach telling this to Morgan because it's obviously going to build even more trust with Morgan to him. And it's also true. Like, people are going to say, oh, this is just Zach, manipulating Morgan. But it's the truth. Morgan was going to be the renom. And Zach didn't use his power. So he did, in theory, save Morgan from going up on the block. So whether he plans on taking Morgan to Final 2 or not, this is just the truth, and it's very smart of Zach. Zach also told her in that conversation that he was telling her this because she is literally the person that he trusts the most in the game, and he doesn't want her to be swayed by anyone else about what to think about him. All very smart after the conversations that he had last night regarding what people were telling Morgan, what people were telling Ashley, the conversations he and Ashley had about him and Morgan early on. If Zach gets out of this week without going home, here's the thing. Like, obviously, if Zach goes home this week and he didn't use his power, we're all going to sit here and say he made a really stupid choice. He's a dummy for being like someone that went home with the power in his pocket. And that would be true. But if Zach survives this week and he didn't use his power, he's kind of going to be seen as a genius because he still has that power that he could use in a future week to save himself. And I think he's going to actually be in a good position in the game if he survives this week in general. So, as I said in the last video, it is a very big risk. He pulls it off, though. I think he's gonna look like he's gonna be a really good spot. And I will, for once this season, have to put a little more respect on his game. A lot of people in the comments in my video earlier were saying that this is Zach's ego, and I said that as well in the comments, and that he is just using his flirting to think that it's going to keep him safe. But it could very well keep him safe. But what's working against him is that there still are enough people that want to see him gone. And Kat and Riley, like I said earlier, Kat is going to want Zach out. Kat is the person on the block she wants out the most. And with Kat is going to come Riley. So Zach has his work cut out for him to stay this week. And I still believe, we're going to get to Keanu in a second. But I still believe Zach has a better shot at staying against Vince than he does against Keanu. Maybe I'll circle back to Zach if I have time, but it is later than I would like to be recording. Let's talk about Rachel and Keanu and even Callie. Rachel told Keanu and Callie earlier about the Heavy Hitters Alliance, but tried to leave herself out of being in that alliance. And I feel like in that conversation between Rachel, Keanu, and Callie, she did finally seem to make some headway with Callie to get Callie to trust her in this game. And with Jimmy out of the game, Callie is saying that she can trust Rachel now. But I don't know if Rachel should have told Keanu about the Heavy Hitters Alliance. Because what does Keanu do with his little pea brain? He goes straight to Vince, his leader Vince, the egg himself. He goes to Vince to talk about the info that Rachel just gave him about the heavy hitters, kind of checking up to see if Vince was really in that alliance, circling back to why maybe that's why Adrian was voted out. So Rachel probably talked too much to Keanu because Keanu always runs things back to Vince. I understand what Rachel was trying to do. She was trying and hoping that this information would sever the tie between Keanu and Vince, and maybe Keanu can finally have the revelation that he can't trust Vince, but instead it had the opposite because Keanu loves to play with men. That is definitely his main focus this season so far. He wants to play with men, and yeah, he can say he wants to play with Rachel, but every time Rachel tries to give him good advice regarding Vince, he runs it right back to Vince. And so this is why I've been saying for weeks now that I want to root for Keanu, but I just can't because he's so delusional and he constantly makes bad choices like this one. Now Vince is trying to convince Keanu that Keanu could mediate a conversation between him and Rachel. And I don't know how Rachel's going to love that, to have a conversation with Vince with Keanu trying to mediate. I mean, I want to see that on feeds because I want to see how frustrated Rachel gets with that happening before, during, and after it happens. But yeah, for the first few weeks, I sat here and talked about how Keanu was the dumbest player in the house. Mickey came out of nowhere, challenged him for that title to just be super dumb, but Keanu wants that title back tonight. He could have the votes to stay this week against Vince or Zach, but if he continues to make dumb decisions like he's doing tonight, he's gonna get his ass voted out. And he's being very confident in conversations with even Vince, saying if it's us on the block, I'm going to stay. Vince is hoping to manipulate Keanu to throw the blockbuster so that he could win, which is smart of Vince. And I think he could probably get into Keanu's pea brain and actually make Keanu consider throwing the blockbuster this week with the way Keanu thinks or doesn't think in this game. So I can see Vince actually convincing Keanu to throw that. If that leads to Vince winning, I guess then we have Keanu versus Zach, and that will be a close one the way it's looking now. But earlier tonight, I thought Zach was going to have a really hard chance against Keanu. Zach is playing smart tonight. Keanu is playing dumb. And we'll see what comes of that. I don't know if Rachel actually made headway with Callie. I'd like to think, but Callie plays similarly to Keanu. It seemed in that conversation, because for weeks Rachel has tried with Callie, and for weeks Callie did not trust Rachel and went around and twisted everything Rachel said. Tonight she admitted to doing that, which I thought was a big step for Callie possibly. But then watching Keanu do what he did, I could expect Callie to probably do the same thing because she is just as bad of a player as Keanu is. Plus, Riley made some sort of comment tonight that seemed to upset Rachel. I don't really know what that comment was. I didn't catch it on the feeds, but Rachel was kind of complaining about that during her conversation with Keanu and Callie, and I wouldn't be surprised if Callie brings that up to Riley, so we have to watch out for that as well. But yeah, like I said, I like the way Zach has played tonight. I don't like the way Riley has played tonight. Vince is being Vince. Vince is trying to collect votes. Lauren told Vince that Zach probably doesn't have votes to stay this week as it stands right now. Zach couldn't even get Lauren to agree to keep him this week over Vince, which makes me wonder if that is a big part of the reason why Zach told Morgan about his power. And it just further makes me think that I was correct in my video earlier that Zach and Morgan's game relationship is very, very solid. And if Morgan can keep Vince and Zach both this week, I'm going to give her credit. I think Morgan could actually have a redemption in this game. She is still very annoying. She is still talking about jury despite Rachel giving it to her yesterday, as we discussed. However, she has some real solid allies going for her. It's just that they're so out in the open that it's going to eventually make her a target too. And I could still see her, despite not getting put on the block this week, I could still see her going before both Zach and Vince if they both survive this week. But I'm here for Morgan trying to redeem herself. Mickey's not going to get there. Mickey's been complaining about Morgan tonight. And last thing I'll talk about is let's give Will some credit for having to deal with his crazy ass allies. He always has Mickey going on and on about bullshit. All the people that Mickey's trying to work with, but also throw under the bus every single day, goes back and forth. Ashley talks a lot. I love Ashley. She's still my favorite, but she does talk a little too much, and Ashley and Mickey have been getting into it a lot. And Will just kind of listens to both of them, doesn't tell the other what they're saying, keeps information to himself. He knows that Ashley tried to change her last vote on the live eviction and wasn't able to, and he's keeping that a secret. He's a good ally, but he's kind of not an ally at all. Will is playing for Will. He just likes to agree with people to their face and keep information to himself. I didn't like it that he wasn't sharing information at first, but I kind of see his game better now. In that when he can keep information to himself, it kind of helps his own game better. So, shout out to Will tonight. He is playing a pretty good game, I think, now that his head is more in the game. And I love to see it. I think that's it tonight. I will be back tomorrow to see if Keanu can further screw up his position this week with his little pea brain.